Think about your first job that you ever held and what you learned from it. My first job was when I was 10 years old. I was a paper boy for the now defunct afternoon newspaper in Chicago, the Chicago Daily News. And every day I would come home, fold the papers, get on my bike, and go off and deliver the newspapers. And every day there was a vicious, angry dog that would chase me throughout the neighborhood after my leg. Well, even at 10, I figured I'm a problem solver. So I came up with what I think was the perfect solution. The next day I came home from school, folded my newspapers, got on my bike, and took off. And this time when the vicious, angry dog approached, I had a bag of hot dogs. And I took these hot dogs and I threw them, and he, sure enough, went after them. Problem solved. It was a brilliant solution, I thought. And then the next day, I went back out, came home from school, folded my newspapers, got on my bike, went to deliver the newspapers, and there was a pack of angry, vicious, hungry dogs. You see, word got out in the dog community that I was serving lunch. The business lesson that I learned from that experience: give your customers what they want, and they will keep coming back for more. About 15 years later, another business that I had was with my brothers. We were in partnership. We thought a great way to make some extra Christmas money would be to sell Christmas trees. So the day after Thanksgiving, a semi-truck pulled up in front of my parents' house, and we proceeded to unload 400 Christmas trees. The lesson in this story really wasn't for me or my brothers. In this case, the lesson that was learned was my parents learned: don't ever let your kids sell Christmas trees out of the backyard. Soon after that, I was getting settled into my profession, my career in public education. I was teaching, became an administrator, became a superintendent at 33. I was in a suburban Chicago school district, and things were going swimmingly, just wonderful. We had passed a referendum to ensure the financial stability of the district. Fast Company magazine even named me to the Fast 50 for my work with the community. But then there was a personnel issue that I had to address. And I had a school principal that was a nice guy. Everyone liked him, but he was ineffective. Kids weren't learning in that school. And so I had to make the recommendation to the Board of Education that we not renew his contract, that we let him go at the end of the year. That divided the board terribly. It was a 4-3 vote, and the board supported my recommendation. The next year, board election, things shifted. There was time then to renew my contract. And there was again a 4-3 vote, except I only had 3 of the votes that time. And they did not extend my contract. And at that point, after the board voted to not extend my contract, one of the board members leaned back in his chair, looked over at me, and said, "Hey, Ray, paybacks, you can fill in the blank." I was angry, I was hurt, I was disappointed, I was grieving this loss of my job, the commitment, the involvement that I had made in that role. And I was exceedingly angry throughout that whole process. What I did, though, was I moved over to the other side of the world and went into corporate because I needed a job. And that corporate experience could not have been further from the world of public education. Very, very different. I loved it. It was about 3 years, and then the company actually got sold and laid off all the staff. And so I was out of that job after 3 years, but it was an amazing experience. So I've gone from public education to corporate, and then I was going back to public education. But I was going back to public education under one circumstance, under one condition: that I had a backup plan, that my career would never again be in the hands of 7 elected board members, and that my ability to pay my mortgage and support my family would not be in their hands ever, ever again. So I started a business. You heard the Toffee business. And so I called it Dr. Ray's Toffee because I wanted to still use my degree. And so the entrepreneurial side became the insurance policy that I have so that I could go back to public education and still have this sideline so that if things go south again, as they often do in public education, I had a backup plan. And so that's what I'm doing. So I have these perspectives, these multiple perspectives of public education, public sector work, corporate work, and entrepreneurial. What I've done is I've tried to step back and see what I've learned from all of those. Is this just a diverse career path of someone who can't hold a job? Or is it a career path of someone who has varied interests and is able to learn from those and pull out those experiences and those lessons, those important lessons, and try to make a sense out of them? And so today what I want to do is give you a model for achieving your goals, overcoming obstacles, and achieving success, however you may define that, based on some of these experiences that I've had and the model that I've created. And with the model, it's a way that you can remember those tools too. And so I call this Fuel for Success. Focus, urgency, enthusiasm, and learning from your successes, as well as your mistakes and failures. It's like a puzzle. Each one is a different piece. No one of those words, focus, urgency, enthusiasm, and success and learning, are unique. You've heard them all. It's the chemistry that occurs when they come together like a jigsaw puzzle. The four pieces come together and a picture emerges and has power in that. So let's take a look at each one of those issues, those ideas, and see how they can help you achieve your success, achieve your goals, and overcome obstacles. The first is focus. I learned about focus the first week in the corporate world because our team was spread out across the country, and we would have a conference call every Monday with the team and with our boss. And we would review the week's plans. And if anything sounded fishy, if anything sounded blurry, less than focused, our boss would scream at us, "Ray, how is that going to drive revenue for this business today?" It was that focused. Everything I had to do that week, that day, had to be directly tied to the focus to driving revenue for the business that day. Because if I couldn't answer that question, then my calendar changed on the spot. As an entrepreneur, the business that I'm doing is a side thing. I don't have a lot of time for non-essential activities. So every minute and every hour that I spend on the business has to be very focused. It has to be essential to what I'm doing. Now there's a trade-off. When we're highly, highly focused, obsessively focused, is that the trade-off is that there are other things we have to accomplish in life. We have to pay our bills. We have to go get groceries. We have to be on Facebook for hours a day. All sorts of things that we have to do. It is possible to be highly focused and still attend to those other shiny objects that are attracting our attention. If you've ever done improv comedy, there's an activity, a mirroring activity, that's very common. And what you have to do, you work with a partner, and you focus on each other's eyes. You stay focused. You don't break that focus. And then one partner begins making movements with their hands, their legs, whatever, and the other person has to mirror those movements without breaking focus, just by seeing it in the peripheral vision. In life, that's the same thing. We can be focused on a goal and on an objective and still attend to those other areas that are in the periphery. The question that you have to ask, the tool for you, how you apply this in your daily life, look at what you're going to be doing this week and ask yourself, will this activity bring me closer to my objective or further away from it? It's a lens. It's a lens through which you look at those daily activities that you do. It's a lens through which you look at your behaviors. The U in fuel is for urgency. Now, I'm going to tell you a little secret. In public education, we have convinced everyone that nothing can be accomplished in under 3 to 5 years. It's just not going to happen. Then I went over to corporate. Remember how long? 4 years after I started, that business didn't exist anymore. The time frame was exceedingly compressed. We were able to get record achievements in record time because we were expected to. If you think of a tea kettle, you could fill a tea kettle with cold water and put it on the stove, no fire. Eventually, it will warm to room temperature and then stall. On the other hand, if you have a high fire, high heat, it's boiling, it's spitting all over the place, you have a lot of wasted energy. It's a matter of finding this balance. Because the point is, you have to have some heat, some pressure for things to happen. For me, when I was starting the candy business, the prospect of unemployment was the heat that got me motivated. And basically within 2 months, I had the business structure set up, I had the website up and running, and I had my doors open for business. You've got to find that pressure, that heat. The next item, the next issue, and the fuel, is enthusiasm. This is the why we do it. Why do we do what we do? When I was in corporate, the business that we were in was we sold physical security, things like video cameras and access control and fire alarm detection, very glamorous technologies. In business terms, the technical term is we sold boxes of stuff. And we were judged and evaluated and compensated on how many boxes of stuff went out the door every quarter. But whenever we met with our CEO, he always reminded us why we were doing that. The reason that we were doing that, selling boxes of stuff, was because we were keeping the world safe. And in 2006, in a post-9/11 environment that was still pretty fresh in people's minds, keeping the world safe was pretty important. It was pretty important. It was meaningful. It got us out of bed and went to go to work every single day. In my current district, in the Chicago suburbs, we have an over 95% low-income rate of our students. Every single day, we serve free lunches to every single student and free breakfasts to every single student in that school district. What we do? We teach reading, we teach math, we teach writing and science and social studies. But that's not what gets us out of bed. The why, the passion, the energy is because if we do our job well, and if we do it right, we will lift those children out of poverty. We only have a short time with those children, basically 9 years, from kindergarten through 8th grade. Each day is 6 hours. There's a lot of time that they're not with us during that span of time. So when we've got to get it right for those kids every single day. That's what gets us out of bed in the morning. That's what gets us to work. The tool for you, you've got to think and reflect. What is it that is the underlying reason that you do what you do? What's the motivation? What's the passion? What's the energy? What is the why? Why do you do that? What drives you to that? The final letter in the fuel is learning from success, as well as your failures. Now, you see, as human beings, we're pretty self-critical. We're really good at that, at figuring out what's wrong. I mean, that's why the term Monday morning quarterback. We all know what the coach should have done or the quarterback should have done. That is the extent of my football knowledge, so if I use those terms incorrectly, I apologize. But we're really good at figuring out the mistakes, the failures, and we should. When I was at corporate, We were held accountable for those failures. We had to answer for those as well. But we didn't dwell on them. We spent most of our time trying to figure out what's working, because those are the tough questions. Because our boss drove us to that analysis, because if we could figure that out, if we could figure out what was working, we would own our market. That's the hard question. I had the same case in my entrepreneurial business. I could have spent $10,000 on this huge piece of equipment to increase my production fivefold. But as I analyzed what the best processes were and what was really working in my business, for an additional investment of basically $300, I was able to increase my production sixfold by figuring out what was working. So those are the tools I'm leaving you with. Focus, urgency, enthusiasm, and learning from your successes as well as your mistakes. If you're having trouble looking at what's really working well in your business or in your life and trying to understand what the successes are, think of your life as a series of small successes. Spend some time each day writing, pen to paper, and just writing and writing and writing and writing about it. Julia Cameron, the author, refers to this as doing your morning papers. It's amazing what comes forth over time. It's a way you will discover some of those successes that you have. So I leave you with this tool, focus, urgency, enthusiasm, and learning. I wish you well, and I hope that these tools will help you overcome the obstacles, achieve your goals, and achieve the success that you desire. Thank you.